Greetings, Dragon Ball fans, and welcome to part 3 of Flamin' Ice's suggested What If Piccolo Stayed Evil, where Goku said something in poor taste, and his then nemesis Piccolo took it as a sign of things to come. Previously, we saw Piccolo abscond with and successfully brainwash Gohan, renaming him Nokan, after a Japanese flute. The pair of them then watched from the shadows as the Saiyans, Vegeta and Nappa, proceeded to demolish the Z-Fighters. Vegeta then fell to a Makanko Sapo as he basked in his sliver of a victory over the low-class trash of a Saiyan Kakarot. Unfortunately for his master Piccolo, Nokan could not do as instructed and kill his own father, so Piccolo did the deed himself, before disappearing into the wilderness once again to work on the boy's obedience. The trip to Namek by Bulma, Chi-Chi, Master Roshi, and Poir was less than successful. Whether Frieza got his wish or not, the planet still got blown to bits as the Earthlings fled, having lost their old master to Zarbon. A few years later, Piccolo announced himself as the new Demon King of Earth, but the two androids took notice and went to investigate. They found him lacking, and Nokan watched his cruel master get picked apart, before finishing him off himself, then vanishing into the rubble of the world. He hooked up with some survivors, and despite his age, quickly became their boss, ruling them with an iron fist. This is when he first found that he could not stand by when they invariably ran afoul of the androids. His roaming gang also eventually happened across Orange City, where they took in new members. One such member was the determined and driven Videl Satan. As the two strongest members, they of course gravitated towards each other over the years, and while still a bit young by modern sensibilities, Videl eventually fell pregnant. Their group then met up with a larger human resistance, and Nokan was reintroduced to his wayward mother, Chi-Chi, Earth's leader of the resistance up until that moment. Chi-Chi threw herself into her new role as co-leader as she tried to pick her way back into her son and granddaughter's life. All that came crashing down, though, when the androids decided to see just how far they could push arguably their only plaything left in this world. The recently unlocked Super Saiyan Gohan then had to dig his daughter out of the rubble and escape to Capsule Corp, where they helped Bulma complete her only real project, the Time Machine. When the machine was finally completed, Gohan was drawn away by what he thought were old friends, and an enemy reborn, but this was not the case. Instead, he found who we would all know as Cell, and did what he could to hold off the beast as he screamed at his daughter, Mirai, to follow through with their plan. When the time machine settled to the ground, Mirai pockets the capsule and flies off towards the wastelands she recalls almost vividly from when her father spoke of what little he remembered from his time training under his once master Piccolo. She finds them easily enough and watches from afar as Piccolo grills the child, that same father, in one lesson or another. When Piccolo inevitably leaves to train on his own for a while, she approaches the battered and still crying little boy. Said boy is initially terrified of this scarred and rough-looking woman that appears from the bushes, but there is something so familiar about her. He had, up till now, been clinging to anything familiar that he could get his hands on. That scrap of cloth that his master Piccolo had recently taken from him was the last he had of his former clothes, the last shred of who he was. But now, this woman, so familiar-looking, with her long but messy black hair, had appeared like a ghost and was just sitting there, building a fire. Eventually, little Gohan works up the courage to break the silence and says hello, then quickly warns that she needs to be careful. Master Piccolo won't like her being here. The older woman just smiles, angrily, then sadly, and asks the boy what his name is. I'm He looks around, then whispers, I'm Gohan, but my master calls me Nokan. Hello, Gohan, the older woman says. I'm Mirai, she whispers, and winks conspiratorially. Mirai then tells Gohan that she will be around, always, and will visit whenever, Master Piccolo leaves him for a few days. They will work together, and when they next meet, she will show him something wonderful. The next time they do meet, Gohan could barely contain himself. Master Piccolo had been especially cruel that day, but the boy knew he was leaving to go train on his own soon. And Gohan, for one, was still holding on to the faint hope that Mirai woman would come back as promised. This time she comes back with food, and mid-meal she reaches into her battered jacket and pulls out a torn, faded, and oddly stained photograph. In it, he can see this woman before him? No, that's his mum. He can also see himself clinging to his daddy, or what is probably his daddy. Mirai offers to let him keep the photo, but Gohan pushes it back. What if Master Piccolo finds it? It's safer with you. Yeah, you're probably right, Mirai says. I'll bring it with me, though, every time I visit, okay? Gohan smiles through his tears and hugs the closest thing to his mother that he can find, as tightly as he possibly can. Over the months that follow, Gohan and Master Piccolo train for 5 or 6 days. Then, when Piccolo leaves the boy with an extra bruise or 10 to go off on his own training, Mirai comes in and treats what injuries she can. They then engage in their own training, while being careful to suppress their power as much as possible. Mirai's training, much like her father's, verges on harsh sometimes, but it's nothing like Master Piccolo's. It is so focused, and takes him down very specific paths, both physically and with the growing ki within. One thing Mirai especially focuses on is Gohan's rage. Her father had mentioned it so many times that he must master it if he hopes to be of any use. When Piccolo comes to investigate a particularly potent eruption of that rage, Mirai is quick to conceal herself. She watches Piccolo watch this younger version of her father as he in turn smashes rocks apart, focusing his anger on something solid and thankfully inanimate. When Piccolo turns to fly away, satisfied with what he sees, Mirai holds out her hand for a moment, pointing at her father's former but dreadful master, a Makan Kosopo crackling to life. But Bulma's words come to her. She mustn't kill Piccolo. Some dragony ball-y things are tied to the man, body and soul. The next day they meet, the last time before the Saiyans are set to arrive. She tells Gohan about Piccolo and Kami's connection. As much as they might hate him, they can't let the man die. She also congratulates Gohan on how well he's done, especially in hiding his power from the man, and she says that she will see them out in the open in 3 days, with the rest of the Z-Fighters. When Vegeta and Nappa arrive, they still blow up East City, and then head off to meet the assembled warriors. Krillin, Yamcha, Tien, and Chaozu are there out in the open, along with a 5th person, a young woman. She certainly looks like she's seen some action throughout her short life. Her exposed face and arms bear the telltale signs in the form of long-healed scars. Piccolo and his little Nokan arrive, and he again instructs the boy to stay back with him. But seeing Mirai standing there awkwardly near the other Z-Fighters, for the first time, Gohan defies his old master, and flies off to join them. When Nappa's Cybermen are all but defeated, Mirai, despite her barely noticeable power level of only 50, effortlessly dispatches the one that would have killed Yamcha. Nappa then moves in to attack them himself, and Gohan, with a nod from his new master, Mirai, focuses on his mum and dad and how this big man might hurt them. Goku then arrives in time to see his little Gohan and the massive Nappa trading blows, with Nappa clearly on the defensive, despite his bravado. When Nappa is finally cast to the ground near Vegeta's feet, the elderly Saiyan is blown away. Vegeta, for one, can't quite believe how obviously this little boy was playing with Nappa, and that big idiot was too blind or stubborn to see it too. Well, now it's time for the prince to step in and show them true power. Before he can, however, Goku lands and greets the assembled Z-Fighters, all of whom are still alive and kicking, even Chaozu. They have mostly been doing what is expected of them, from pretty much the Cell Saga and beyond, standing around and watching. Oh hey, who's the new, Goku asks, spotting Mirai, who up until now was leaning against a rock, calmly watching Gohan dismantling Nappa. He can't shake the feeling that he's seen her before. Mirai introduces herself and says that she's been training with Gohan for the battle. Oh, you must be pretty strong then, because Gohan, wow. Goku laughs, still a bit put off by how familiar she looks, but oblivious to what else has happened. I thought Piccolo was training him up. What? The look on both Mirai and Gohan's face are like mirrors of each other. Anger? Resentment? Maybe sadness? All those touchy feelings are not exactly Goku's strong suit. Hey, where is Piccolo anyway? He asks, and Mirai glances over at a hill. Piccolo himself is still recovering from the revelations that 1. Gohan is way, way stronger than he's been letting on. 2. He's been defying his orders all along and training with this Mirai person. And 3, everyone, even Vegeta, is looking right at him. Before Goku can actually wave hello to Piccolo, said Vegeta demands their attention. He really wants to make an example of that boy, so if you would please stand aside and... Unfortunately for the prince, Goku was not overly thrilled to hear about East City and Nappa's little excursions. All those people they'll need to wish back at some point. Hey, come to think of it, whatever happened to the population of East City and the battle group that Nappa tore through? They weren't wished back right away because Goku was revived. Then Kami died, and then they wished the Namekians back. They also weren't included in the wish about everyone killed by Frieza and his men, since Tien and Yamcha weren't revived then either. And even if they were, you need to preserve the bodies, don't you? Yeah, I'm pretty sure they were never brought back. Like, ever. Man. And Canon Vegeta's just wandering around all la-di-da? I wonder if he ever visits East City after it gets rebuilt. That could be awkward. Anyway, Goku vs. Vegeta plays out mostly as normal, with Mirai looking somewhat amused at Vegeta's Ozaru transformation. Then she remembers when Gohan's tail had grown back after a particularly stressful session, and she told him to hide it, wrapping it around his waist. When she'd then watched Piccolo get backhanded during the next full moon, she'd connected the dots. Now, she's not sure that was such a great idea. Turning to Gohan to tell him to look away, she sees that it's too late. As the Ozaru Gohan rages at Ozaru Vegeta, Mirai flies over to Goku to help him up and away. Goku offers her the Spirit Bomb, but learning that it's made of pure good energy, and that it destroys evil, Mirai rejects it. With all the rage and anger and sadness she feels in her heart, it would probably kill her. She asks if removing the tails would work, and when he confirms it, in a flash, Mirai flickers away, returning to her grandfather's side with a massive but rapidly shrinking tail in each hand. "Don't worry, Gramps, I'll take it from here," she says quietly. As she faces the now normal-sized Vegeta, she first feels, then sees the telltale sign of a Makan Kosopo reaching out from the new rock formation that Piccolo had moved to. She deflects the beam inches from Vegeta's back and stares at Piccolo for a moment before Vegeta rounds on her, thinking that he's ready to go for another round against this weakling of a woman. "Oh, Vegeta, no, I'm sorry, but you have no idea what stands before you." He still gives it a go, though, kicking and punching despite his many wounds, but nothing hits, not even close. When Mirai eventually tires of playing, she hits Vegeta once again, cratering him into the ground. She can of course feel another Makan Kosopo building from behind yet another hill, so she flickers towards it and grabs the fingers, crushing them into a green and purple mush. "Piss off," she growls, staring down at Piccolo, with her hair flickering slightly, desperate to erupt in the full power of what we all know is Super Saiyan. Vegeta is then taken to hospital, and is the only one to be held there for any length of time. Krillin is fine, having been chilling on the sidelines for most of it, as is Gohan, despite his more active role. Goku is also up and about, having never used that last remaining senzu on either of them. Most of them are not at all sure why Vegeta is even there, but Goku seems happy enough. He hadn't actually wanted to kill the man since he was such a great challenge, despite the utter carnage he'd brought with him. Mirai, too, has her own reasons for keeping the Saiyan Prince alive. Dealing with those machines will need all the help they can get. "Oh yeah, the machines," she says out loud in the hospital room. Everyone stares at her in confusion, so she finally fills them in on Bulma's original plan. So she is called Mirai, and just as the name implies, she's from the future. Yes, that's actually what her mother had named her, but for slightly different reasons. In a little over 4 years, was it? 2 artificial people will appear and lay waste to Earth. There is simply no one left to face them in her time. Goku had died to Piccolo after the Saiyans were defeated, and... Shut it, Vegeta. And that Namkia place was destroyed by an ice age? Something about their dragon? Oh, Namkia. Yeah, so Kami and Piccolo are actually, Namkins? Yeah? Okay. Yeah, and they're from Namkia. There's a ship, somewhere. She doesn't know where exactly, as Bulma never told her. In her time, Chi-Chi and Bulma had gone there, to Namkia, to bring back Goku and Chaozu using their dragons, but, well, it didn't work out because a massive freezer blew the place up somehow? From his bed, Vegeta has been listening in and starts to laugh, but stops to cough in pain. Of course Frieza would have heard of the Dragon Balls and figured it out. He's probably on his way to Namek already. If only they'd given Vegeta his wish. He could have beaten Frieza, and, well, now it's too late, you fools. Mirai then pulls out a capsule and hands it to Bulma, who had told the girl to give it to her here in the past. It's a ship of some kind, she thinks. Well, maybe not an actual ship, but the plans for one with some key components that Bulma's dad had apparently struggled with the first time round. The ship, as it turns out, is almost complete. There are still some components needed from a Saiyan pod, but as luck would have it, they have 3. Well, 2.5 actually. While Nappa's pod never blew up, Raditz's was still pretty banged up after Gohan's little outburst, barely a year ago. She also tells them what little she knows about the thing that had finally killed her dad. It wasn't even the machines. She has no idea what actually became of them. They're probably still lurking about somewhere in the future. Instead, that weird amalgamation of lots of distinct but very different powers had appeared and wrecked the place even more. She can feel the similarities with those around her now. Even that Vegeta guy was part of the Bugman thing. Where it came from and what it was called, she doesn't know, only that it said it would blow up the planet after it killed her dad. And as they all sit, stand, and in Vegeta's case, lay there, soaking all this in, we will bring Part 3 to a close. Future Pan, known here as Mirai, has done what her father had planned, and saved himself from the clutches of the evil Mr. Piccolo. The Saiyans were defeated in short order, without her even needing to touch on that strange, golden boost in power that she and her father could access somehow. How will they prepare for the arrival of the androids? Will Mirai be willing to travel to Namek to ensure that they and their Dragon Balls are kept free from Frieza's wrath? Find out next time on Dragon Ball. What if Piccolo stayed evil?